please follow the etiquette for video conference and turn on your cameras. We're ready to go whenever you think so.
Yeah, perfect. So it's already time to start. In my situation, just as Vice Dean for the International Relations, just to introduce Professor Eduardo Alarcón as adjunct to the School for the Relations with the American Universities. And so he will present all the offers that you have for mobility in the United States. And of course, he will also present you, which is the procedure for requesting one of those vacancies. So please, Eduardo, it's your time.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Jose. Thank you, Professor Lázaro. So Wednesday, 3 p.m., December 2nd, we have 26 people attending. This is a good interest about this mobility call. So welcome to this annual mobility call for U.S. universities. So we're representing the W Telecom School on behalf of Professor Lázaro as Associate Dean. So we're targeting September 21, normally Q1, but also potentially February 22. That will be Q2 for mobility. Today, we'll try to highlight what's the uniqueness of the U.S. Mobility program from our school, opposite to regular Erasmus-like mobility. And perhaps before we start and anticipating some questions that you might have, the first most legitimate question is, how is the situation in terms of the pandemic? So as you can imagine, in the past months, all the positions that went to the US from our school, from any school in the UPC, from any school in Europe and worldwide, most of mobility was canceled, particularly US mobility, because the pandemic is hitting harder there. So that's a question about the past. What about the future? Well, we are opening this call as if the situation will be normal in September 21. Do we have a boundary for the uncertainty? Well, it is likely that things will go back to normal. We don't know. So we are offering this as normal. You will be selected and nominated as candidates as normal. And that's what the American host professors do as well. And if the situation changes, we will adapt contingently. But in principle, so don't ask about the pandemic. We don't know. No one knows. We're assuming that things will allow mobility by September 21, at least. But the nomination process, anyhow, will start in April. Now you need to apply for the position. Around a month from now, you'll have the positions assigned. So by the time in which we need to do the nomination, we should already clarify the situation. That's as for the pandemic, assuming that most of you is concerned about mobility. A very legitimate concern. We don't have an answer. The answer is we're running as normal. And then second question, well, in the past 4 years, we've been running U.S. mobility with a different administration. So administration has changed, and the U.S. is again presumed to be back to receiving visiting scholars and students in terms of visa. So this is something that escapes not only our control, but UPC control and universities control. This goes beyond this. But situations are expected to be smoother in terms of visiting students. So with this two notes as a preamble reflection, I will just start with the presentation. It's a short one, less than 1 hour, and we'll discuss about any question you might have. Jose, would you please confirm that you can see the slides and listen to me properly?
Yes, I can see.
Okay.
Everyone.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So it's a notably large audience today. So the profile, remember that anything that we present today, which is strictly speaking and humbly speaking, is one of the largest U.S. mobility programs within UPC at large. Anything that you see today is not the way we rule the program, it's the way the U.S. American professors expect you to be. So it's not a requisite that we impose, but it's what they expect. And we have a long-lasting relationship with many U.S. universities and in particular research professors, most of them in 10, 15 years. So yes, if your profile, it is a master's thesis, which is research orientation, that's the natural profile for U.S. mobility. This is not exclusive. If you have a bachelor thesis in mind to be carried out in the US, if you have a research orientation, and you have a very strong academic file, you're also eligible, right? Now, any of these positions requires a so-called J1 visiting scholar visa. So you're visiting as a researcher student, as a PhD, as a professor will do anyhow. That's the way US mobility goes. And in principle, student has to cover living expenses. So try to think about this opportunity as an investment for your professional career. There's no funding. There's no even the symbolic Erasmus budget. So practically speaking, I wouldn't say most or many, but usually research assistantship, RA, or teaching assistantship, TA, are a possibility. And sometimes you go there, and then after a while, the host professor offers you some funding. Now, something that has to be very, very clear is that US mobility in principle doesn't include courses. There are exceptions, but in principle, no courses are considered. Why is that? Well, courses would require a very expensive tuition, and we're not exaggerating. You know that a tuition in a large US American university can be 30K annual up to 100K annual. So there are no courses, they cannot be co-validated, and that would require a special visa, not a visiting scholar research visiting position, but a different type of visa, which is more difficult to get. So no courses. If you have pending courses, then you cannot apply to US mobility. And then again, all of these positions are done carried out and implemented on a one-by-one ad hoc basis. So we have a relationship with a given host professor, with a given institution. You are nominated. That's the way it goes, which means that there's no guarantee that you're accepted. But statistically, 80 to 90% of the students that go through our mobility program eventually are accepted. So in the nomination process, in the way we will interact with you, we'll interview you, we'll go through your academic file and your curriculum. That process will be to assist you in the selection and to guarantee that the likelihood that you're accepted is very high. But this is not like an Erasmus position. I apply for a position, I am accepted by default. No, this is based on a long history of relationships between our school and between each and every of your colleagues in the past that did a good job as a master thesis or bachelor thesis visiting student, and therefore the school and you as student from our school is prestigious in that sense. But again, there's no guarantee. But don't get me wrong, and don't be very, very scared. Around 90% of you who are nominated eventually are accepted, and then the experience is virtually always very, very rewarding. Now, following with the formalisms, which are the requisites? Well, the main aspect for the nomination and mainly for the acceptance there is the academic file. So you need a strong academic file. Now, how to differentiate your academic file? Don't ask for a golden number. Do I need an 8? Do I need a 7? Do I need a 9? Well, it depends case by case. But generally, you need a strong academic file. Then, if you have any research experience, that's usually a strong criterion to differentiate and facilitate the nomination. If you have any summer internship, any research experience in a summer internship, that usually makes a difference. So a strong academic file. Again, this is not a red line prerequisite. It's just that this facilitates nomination. But what really is important is you need to ask yourself and answer yourself whether you do have a genuine willingness to continue with the research path. So for those of you who are doing bachelor, you're expected, you go to the US, not as an experience, it will be a live experience anyhow, but this is made an academic experience. So you take the US way if you plan to continue with a master's. And then for those of you in a master's, again, it's not a must, but many US professors will ask you if you ever consider continuing research in a PhD or in a different way. So that's, again, not a must, it's not a requisite, but that's something they will be asking for. So be prepared to answer yourself. This is not only an experience to close your academic life in the school, it's also a first step towards a research path. That's a very, very clear difference between the US positions and the rest of the positions. And sharing this with you, I hope I'm not being blunt, I just want to share crystal clear what the conditions are. so that everyone, this is to assist you in the decision whether or not to go to the US and whether or not to apply, and then where to apply. Very good. So without further ado, I can quickly go through the destinations, and this is being recorded. The list will be made public. Because in the process, you will need to apply to the different destinations. So if there are no general questions up to now, we can take questions at the end if you wish, but feel free to interrupt and ask at any time. I will going to quickly browse through the destinations, and then we'll talk about how to do the interviews on the assignment. So in no particular order, this is no alphabetical order, it's not ranked against how prestigious the institution is. We do have positions in Northeastern University. This is in Boston for those of you. This is a very strong university in the US. It's usually ranking 30-ish in the US ranking, if not higher. It is true that it's a bit, this university, it's a bit eclipsed by the strength of MIT and Harvard, which are in Cambridge, Boston as well. But this is a very strong university. There are 3 topics in particular. Remember that the US mobility positions, opposite to positions for Erasmus, they have a topic color because they correspond to a particular professor. You never say, I have a position in Northeastern, let me talk to professors, like you do in Erasmus. No. The positions have a name and have a topic. So in Northeastern University, we have Professor Milica Stojanovic, who's a worldwide expert in signal processing for underwater communications. So for those of you who are into the signal processing specialization, you probably have been reading the ProAkis book. So Stojanovic was a PhD student from ProAkis. Professor Stojanovic then went to MIT for many years now. She's a full professor at Northeastern, and she's a worldwide expert in signal processing. This is hardcore signal processing. Originally information theory, now going more into network aspects, particularly for underwater communications, how the physical layer is there different. Now they have unmanned underwater vehicles, submarines and the like, working in a network, in a swarm. That's more or less the topic. Anything related to the full stack of communications in the very unique and harsh environment of underwater applications. Now there's a second topic. This corresponds to Professor Dana Brooks in the very field of biomedical image and video processing, particularly he works now in. So of course, anyone who's working image or video processing, this means AI nowadays as the enabling tool and technique to do image and video processing. Particularly Professor Brooks works in brain imaging. Now we have a third position by Professor Kaushik Chaudhry. He's working in wireless and networks at large generally. He comes from the world of communications, low energy, distributed, decentralized, wirelessly interconnected mesh and ad hoc and mobile ad hoc networks, right? So before we proceed, and before we jump the Charles River and go from Northeastern to MIT, let me just clarify something which is very, very important. And this is a formal aspect, not only on my behalf, on behalf of Professor Laffer, on behalf of the Dean of our school. You have here the information about the topic and about the name for 2 reasons: for transparency, and second, because it will facilitate for you to decide to which university to apply and in which topic. If you get more information from these names, you go into the webpage of these researchers, or you go, I'm assuming that you have heard about the so-called Google Scholar, which is where researchers publish their research papers. Remember, this is a master's or a bachelor thesis that usually ends up with a research paper. It's research-oriented. So going into the webpage of each of these professors and or go to the Google Scholar profile of these professors, this is to facilitate your decision, but never, ever, and this is a red line, it will constitute an ethical complaint from the school, never, ever contact the professor, right? The reason is that the school keeps the interlocution with the professors. We do the internal discussion for nomination, and we do the formal nomination once, because there's internal competition. And this is done for your own sake and for the sake of, so that there's no grievance with the rest of students, and also not to alter the relationship, which is long-standing. So never ever contact the professor until you're officially nominated, so in quotes, you win the position, and the school will formally put you in contact and bridge you to the professor around, let's say, Aprilish, May, and then you can start the information. And you're welcome to contact former students from our school that are now there, well, not this year, but that you know that they have been there in the past. And that's an easy way for you to understand the different destinations. But please get the information by browsing web Google Scholar. Do not contact the professors until you get one position confirmed and officially nominated from this school. This is very important. Now, I'm using a presentation from past years, so this is not updated. We go to MIT. We do have 2 positions in MIT. I don't think that we need to talk more about MIT. Everyone understands and is aware that the prestige of MIT transcends the academic reputation. It is a very special way to go. Our school has 2 positions. So yearly we have 1-2 candidates going to MIT. And by the way, let me just clarify numbers, statistical numbers. So out of everyone attending the meeting today, or everyone that will attend remotely or deferred, yearly we have 5 to 10 students from our school going to the US. This gives you some estimated numbers of how many of you it is statistically normal that eventually are nominated to the US. And MIT in particular, 0, 1, or 2 candidates a year. So we have a position from Professor Antonio Torralba, he was a former student from our school more than 20 years ago. And then he's now a very successful professor there. He was part of the IBM MIT research program for a couple of years now. He is one of the 3 faculties at the EE Electrical Engineering and Computer Science department at MIT, devoted to flip the whole institute MIT that incorporate AI up front in the study plan. So he's a very prestigious professor there. And he worked in the field of image processing at large / at the verge of computer graphics. Of course, nowadays applying artificial intelligence. Now we do have also a position in the field of aerospace systems, but from a telecom perspective. So we have Professor Ed Crowley, that you might have heard about, because not only he was consulting with NASA and Obama on the Challenger, and he then was a rector in a large university in Moscow. He was the head of the Aeroastro department at MIT, but mainly also he was the father of the CDIO methodology, which is something that applies to your study plan. So if you have enjoyed or suffered CDIO, you can thank and blame Professor Crowley for that. So many students from our school have visited that institute, who works in spacecraft architectures, but distributed new mission architectures, and the telecommunications aspects of it is very important, and the systems aspect of it is very important, and the optimization design aspect of it is very important. That's why a telecom student fits very well in this position. And then I was saying that I'm using an old presentation, so the optoelectronic chips, Professor Ram, this is not available this year. This is my fault. Please don't consider that position. Now, we still stay in, wouldn't say Boston, I would say. So Massachusetts, this is UMass. For those of you who are into the field of electromagnetics and antennas, in particular, if you have gone through the optional specialization course on antennas, and you've read the book from Pothar, then this is the research group. We have 2 professors, and they work in anything from electromagnetics down to photonics up to radar. It is the place to be for electromagnetics and antenna design. UMass, this is like 30 miles inside Massachusetts, a very special place. So we go to Atlanta, Georgia Tech. I don't know how familiar you are with the US ranking. This is not one of the 3, it's usually the 4th or the 5th. Georgia Tech in engineering, and in AA in particular, is usually ranking number 4, number 5. We have 2 positions. One is by one of the fathers of wireless and networks, and in anything that has to do with network design, from 5G terahertz to space nets to software-defined networking. That's Professor Ian Akildis, a heavyweight in the research field. And now we have a brand new position that started 2-3 years ago. This is a rising star. Professor Tushar Krishna did a PhD from MIT a few years ago, and now he's a rising star in the field of, he's at the verge of double E and computer science. So he's working in AI accelerators. He's working in designing chips for artificial intelligence, particularly the communication, the so-called communication networks on a chip to implement efficient accelerators for artificial intelligence. Now we do have a position, and we go back down to New York. This is Brooklyn, Poly Brooklyn. We have a position from Professor Dariusz Charkowski. So this is already within NYU, which is the large compendium of universities encompassing Columbia, New York, etc., and Poly Brooklyn, NYU at large. This destination is in the very field of energy systems and power conversion. I think that the last student going there was working in power conversion for Boeing for airplanes, if I'm not mistaken. Now we do have, we're in the area still. We just close to one of the 3 airports in New York. We go to New Jersey Institute of Technology, JIT. There is Professor Raquel Perez Castillejo's research lab. She works in lab on a chip. So this is in the field of electronics applied to bioengineering, particularly chip design for lab on a chip, for testing biological structures at the molecular cell level. Then we did have a position. This is a change as well. I apologize for not having this updated. We did have a position from Dr. Benjamin Sanchez in this very field. So he's working in system identification, so Kalman filtering and the like. But for the neurophysiological nerve system. So it's at the verge of double A and system identification and math and neuroscience applications. Now, the topic is there, the researcher is there. He's not in Harvard Medical School anymore. He went a few months ago, and this is why this is not updated, apologies for that, to Utah University, Utah, which is one of the 3 strong universities in the central Rocky Mountains area in the US. So it's the same topic, same researcher, but going back to Utah. Then we do have a position in Illinois Urbana-Champaign. I don't know whether you know this. This is the strongest university for computer architecture. And you would say, well, how is this fitting to AA? Well, nowadays, the design of many core computer architectures requires a lot of communication. So the very field of network on chip. So at the verge of communications, network design, chip design, this is this. In particular, this is Professor Josep Torrellas, who's a very well-known researcher in this very field. And he started to explore recently applying wireless within the chip. So anyone who's expert or with interest in wireless network miniaturized within the chip for scalable, massive many-core computer architectures, that will be the field. Then we do have a position in Intel, Santa Clara, in California. This is at the core of Silicon Valley. In the past, with the Trump administration, there was a veto on this destination. Now we don't know. We offer now, and let's see how things change. This is for IoT, but Internet of Video things. So if you're interested in video processing, but with very, very efficient codecs that minimize bandwidth and energy consumption, so that you can exchange video in a distributed, decentralized Internet of Things platform, then this is the topic within Intel. So now we do have also a position more lining into the physical side and electromagnetic side. This is in Los Alamos National Laboratory. So yes, no nuclear bombs involved. This is close to Area 51, if anyone knows. This is New Mexico. Counterintuitively, if you haven't been there, it's very cold in the winter, although this is New Mexico. And we have Dr. Ho-Tong Chen, who worked in meta surfaces, particularly for terahertz, based on nanotechnology. So if you are into electromagnetics and nanotechnology, he's working in terahertz like meta surface. I don't know how close you are to meta surfaces. They are programmable electromagnetic surfaces and arrays that allow beam steering, reflective, passive arrays, and etc. So this is being a lot driven by communications applications, but this requires a lot of antenna design and electromagnetic design together with nanotechnology and the physics of it, right? Then we do have a position in one of the three research centers from NASA, the headquarters in NASA Goddard in Washington, D.C., and Goddard Space Flight Center. We have Rosé Joanola, who was also an original student from our school. And she's working on 2 missions. So you know that NASA has 3 or 4 research centers. JPL is more into far-fetched, more futuristic topics. NASA, they are really building 2 missions that will be launched 3-4 years from now. But there is a lot of communications there. So this will be into system integration and communications for a 2 mission from NASA to be launched. Then we do have a position at UC Berkeley. There's this Professor Jan Rabai, he's a very well-known scholar into the field, originally into the field of digital VLSI design and then computer architecture design. But he was also, in the past 10 years, the chair of the so-called Wireless Research Center at Berkeley. So they were working in wireless and network modes. So it's chip design for wireless and network modes, and recently he's also exploring brain-like computer processors. Now we do have positions also in Texas A&M, which is ranking usually very high in the US rankings, among the 15 higher, particularly in aerospace. Aerospace is it's au pair with practically with MIT, so it's a very strong university. Again, you'll be surprised that we have positions for aero and spacecraft. Well, nowadays spacecrafts, many of them are miniaturized or working in distributed architectures or swarms, and that requires wireless communications. And most of the areas and topics and courses from our school. Now there is a more exotic position, so that would be Professor Danny Selva, by the way. He was originally a student from our school. He went to do the PhD at MIT, then he went to Guyana 2 years to work for ESA, and now he's a professor now. He was a professor at Cornell, he's a professor at Texas A&M. And now we have Professor Ana Díaz Artiles. She also got a PhD from MIT. She was working with the CTO of NASA for many years. And now she's a worldwide expert in bioastronautics, so spacesuits. So this is at the verge of the biomechanics and the biophysical aspects of the human body, together with nanomaterial sensors and the like for the spacesuit itself, right? Then I don't know why this is here. Northeastern University should be at the beginning. We saw Northeastern at the beginning, so you add a 4th topic. This is a rising star, Professor Josep Miquel Jornet, which he was originally from our school. We have been having Professor Jornet visiting. Got a master thesis from MIT, a PhD from Georgia Tech, went as a professor to New York. Now he's a professor, a very stable professor in Northeastern University. And he's working in graphene-based terahertz wireless networks, and also neural optogenetics, so using nanoscale electromagnetics and radiation and communications for measuring the brain or for body area networks. Then we have something more exuberant, which is the University of Nebraska. We have Professor Massimiliano Pierovon working in communication networks, but based on biological molecules, which is a very emergent field of research. Again, you can always browse the webpage and go to the Google Scholar profile to have more information. Then we have a position at the USC, out of the 7 universities in the University of California umbrella. This is one of them. It's not Berkeley, it's not UCLA, but this is probably the 3rd or the 4th strongest. This is USC. This is Professor Ortega. He works in image processing. He has been lately working, of course, in AI, but particularly in graph neural networks. So machine learning that learns the parameters of a graph as a way to learn and model the interplay between the components of an image. Now, Professor Ortega, he sometimes accepts 1 or 2 student candidates, and there is sometimes also some salary involved, because he also co-participates in some startups, this being California. So this is a message. I don't know, Jose, Professor Lázaro, about Purdue. I'm reproducing message from Pazzi. I know that with Purdue, there are more things to say. So would you like to comment about the situation with Purdue University?
Okay, with Purdue University, we have been keeping for many long years this collaboration at the research level with Professor Delp, as you are commenting in your slides, Eduard, in image processing, regarding other possible mobilities, for example, for courses that we've been running during the last 2 years. In this moment, they are stopped.
This is stopped, of course.
Due to of course, in the same way that we are having difficulties and then we are running on online teaching, it's a similar situation what they are facing in Purdue. So because of that, they are recommending not to have mobility.
Absolutely.
The situation is recovered.
Absolutely. So thank you very much. Thanks for reinforcing the information and for clarification. So with Purdue, we just have a position with Professor Edward Delp as the rest in image processing, but we don't have course-based programs. We started 3 years ago because of the pandemic. Right. Yeah. So there's another position at UC Davis. This is UC as well. Dr. Sebastian, who works in on-chip wireless and on-chip photonic networks for scalable computing architectures. Then we have Amlan Ganguly, who's working at Rochester, New York, in RIT, working in wireless for data centers. So wireless seems to be a key enabling technology to facilitate a more efficient data center. So this is stacked data centers, but with wireless to foster scalability. And then we have a position, I don't know where that, we have a position at the IBM T.J. Watson Research Center. This is at the headquarters of IBM in Jordan Heights, 40 miles up from New York City. A beautiful destination, particularly in fall season and autumn. We have Dr. Chai-Hwa Wu, who works in AI, cognitive. If you're more into the theoretical aspects of artificial intelligence, this could be a position. You see that the topics are very diverse. They cover the whole breadth of our school. But remember, don't expect to see names of courses. This is for research. It's just that you are capable to go and start to specialize in these directions. But this is as diverse as you are diverse, as representative of the students in our schools. So this is to clarify. And then we do have a position at Princeton University. This is Professor Naveen Verma, who recently got appointed Associate Dean for Entrepreneurship and Innovation. But he's very strong in 2 topics. One is in embedded AI for the edge. Remember, in sensor networks, cloud, fog, and edge. So he implements AI by the edge, including chip design. But there's a lot of data processing, AI, and communications involved because it's the full stack. He works in that, so AI, machine learning, IoT, edge-oriented. But he's also a worldwide expert in in-memory computing, which is one of the ways to implement efficient AI. So leveraging the structure of memories, for those of you who are more into chip design, to implement matrix multiplication efficiently for artificial intelligence coprocessors in memory computing. That's what it's called. And we do have Professor Vich Marojevic, who is in Mississippi State University, generally in wireless communications and software, radio, and the like. And then we did have a position in the headquarters of Mountain View in Google. This shouldn't be here. I'm sorry for the frustration. This is not happening anymore. With the Trump administration, this disappeared. I haven't talked to them before opening the call. So sorry, you can just also backslash this. This is not offered now. Then, Professor Lázaro, Jose, any information about Balcells program? This has been halted, but I know that there is a relationship with CU Boulder. Do you have that in mind?
Yes, I mean, maybe you have followed the presentation that University of California Irvine was doing in October about the continuation of the Balcells program. And you have also this information on the web of the school, and University of Colorado Boulder has also decided to continue with the continuation of the Balcells program that nowadays is going to be called Colorado Europe program. Yeah, as there's not going to be more the financing from Balcells Foundation, neither from the Generalitat de Catalunya. Is Colorado Springs the only one which is not continuing with this program? Yeah, only
I
just
see. I
Colorado
see.
and California Irvine, and the information of those two and how to apply this year to the new program, you can find it at the web of the school.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for clarifying the information. So again, for everyone in the audience, remember, you probably have heard of it, of this, the Balsites program, which was coming and co-funded by the Generalitat de Catalunya for that was granting fellowships to go to UC Irvine in California or Cecil Boulder and then Colorado Springs for some time with a notable funding. Well, this program disappeared, but not the contacts. So UC Irvine and CU Boulder, they kept the program with internal funding. So these are the uniqueness of these positions is that these are funded, and that both courses or thesis positions are possible. But all the information was disclosed in a presentation, and it's available on the webpage. But formally speaking, you will be you need to be nominated through our schools. So if anyone would consider this, the new version of the Balsites program, which is directly user funded in Colorado Boulder, so you need to talk to us as any other candidate, right? Then contact hours, there are no contact hours this year. I'm going to campus every day, but there are no office hours. Instead, the procedure I'm proposing for this year, so take a mental note, this is important. So historically, we were offering office hours 1 or 2 days, and usually there was a waiting line of some 20 of you, 30 of you that were interested to explore the US. And eventually some 5 or 10 of you are nominated. This is the statistics. It is likely that this year will be similar. We cannot host a full office hours interviews. We'll flip the procedure. I will ask to anyone who does a self-exercise of self-evaluation. How am I doing academic file-wise? How am I doing in terms of my willingness to try to do research? And so why US? Not just for the experience, but why US? Remember, going to the country US, it's a bit coincidental. If you go to the US, this is because they have some of the best research centers in the world. So the US experience is not the American experience, it's the research experience in some of the best places in the world. Do that exercise, and if you think that you qualify, then I will ask the following. Anyone who's interested, send me an email with the following information, and then we will do an internal discussion, and then we'll contact some of you for an interview. Okay? Again, my office is open always. If anyone stops by, feel free, but we are not having a 1-day-long office hours this year. Instead, I'm asking each of you to do this exercise and write in a 1 to 2 page long self-description letter. Write to us, to the school, why US? Why research? And have some forward-looking research plans. And then again, if you think that that's a bit harsh, well, that's what the US professor will ask you the first day. You need to be prepared for that. And then also try to highlight, if there exists any uniqueness in your academic file beyond what's the apparent. So we'll check your academic file. Don't ask about which is the average academic file I need. There's no golden number. A strong academic file is a good reading of the file. It's just how your academic file looks like. So, but is there any uniqueness? Do you have anything in your CV that goes beyond what's there? Any summer internship, any cooperation, any relationship, anything to say about you? So give us that information. And then as for the research topic interest, let us know what's the background experience. Most of you will say, I have no research experience. That's fine, that's legitimate, that's normal. But if you do, that is something to position yourself better. And then focus on future interests. I would like to specialize in this field. Don't talk about the positions. The positions are for you there. Don't talk about the positions. You cannot say, hey, I'm interested in that position. Well, you already know which the positions are. There's a lot of information public out there. Don't ever contact the researchers and professors, but then go and have in mind to which positions you would like to apply. But don't talk about that. Just let us know the topics of your interest. and try to focus, right? Don't fall either into the Leonardo da Vinci syndrome, saying I like everything. Don't fall either in the other extreme, which is I only want to go to MIT, yes or yes. So try to focus and say which topics and why, and describe yourself uniquely, and send that to me in a letter, in an email. And then we will come back and call for an interview to some of you. And for that interview, and I'm asking you, anyone who's interested, to do so during the next week. You have 7 days to do so. Everyone is in December Christmas mood. You write this. If you confirm that you have interest to try the US mobility program from our school, send this to us. Don't expect unfortunately, many answers. An email, my office door is open. I cannot always usually answer emails, but send this to us. Then we will discuss this with Professor Lázaro, with the dean, and we will call for an interview to a subset of you. And that interview will be remote with a Google Meet, but you will be receiving information about which date and at which hour you will have that interview, right? So that's the plan for this year, which is a bit different. And with that, I am done. 45 minutes, and the floor is open for questions. So it's 22 of you, and people left. I hope no one was scared. It's fine if you feel some vertigo, because going to the US to do research is normal, but this means that you're growing. So the floor is open for questions. Any question, don't hesitate to ask. Even if you think it's a naive question, go and ask. Any question, either particular about you, about the destination, or generic for everyone. Now it's the time for questions from everyone. We still have Eva Salvador, who will be running the administration side. We have Professor Lázaro as well. I'm here to assist you. Please ask any questions that you have on the mobility program. And to do so, please turn on your microphone and turn your camera on, unless there's a major force reason not to do so. Questions? Don't tell me that there are no questions. Usually there's a good waiting line of questions after the presentation. We understand that remote is different, but any question from anyone in the audience?
Eduard,
Yes.
I have a question. Well, I'm going to turn on the camera.
Oscar?
Yes.
Please, Oscar, go ahead. Thank you.
I have a question concerning the double master's program that is in relation to the Illinois University. Is this meeting is also oriented to this double master's program, or just concerning the master's degree?
That's a very clear question.
The master's thesis.
That's a very clear question. So IIT in Chicago, they offer positions for everyone in Europe. So it's not specific to our school. It's open to everyone at UPC, any university in Catalonia and Spain, in Europe. Still, every year there are students that go. But this IIT double master's program is under the responsibility of Professor Lázaro. So I relay the question to you, Jose.
Yeah. Let me tell you that in the same way as other universities like California, Irvine has been presenting the bachelor's program. Also, IT will be presenting the double degree that we have with them, and it will be on Friday, 11, next Friday, 11 December. It will be displayed also. It will be announced also at the web page of the school. Usually we are sending the email and displaying the events 1 week in advance, the event, because we know that we put the information too early, maybe this fall down into so many announcements, and if we make it too short, then maybe it could be too fast for you to react. So that means that next Friday it will be announced that on 11th December, Friday, you have also this session. It will be Friday at 5 o'clock.
Absolutely. So that's a clear information. Oscar, just a couple of reflections which don't condition your decision. So Jose, we have a standing relationship with IIT for more than 10 years, and it's a very fruitful relationship. Usually, I mean, there are students from our school going there. Just for you to understand that, on the one hand, So this is one of the destinations that offers a master's experience. So this is probably a 1-year-long experience, including master's. You need to pay. You don't need to pay full tuition, but you need to pay somehow. There are grants. IIT is a fine university. It's a beautiful campus. It's a fine university. It's not at the same level of some of these destinations we had here in terms of reputation. It's a fine school. So that's just one factor. And another factor is that IIT has cooperation with many universities in Europe. So formally, you need to compete with many other candidates. It is true that statistically, students from our school at UPC usually get the position at IIT. But you have to compete with, and we will help you with the nomination, etc. But this is not a specific position from our school.
Okay.
Right? If this clarifies your question. But yes, go attend the meeting and then take a decision. Yeah, of course. And we'll
aligned with the comment of Eduard, is just to say it's completely different objective. I mean, at the degree, especially at the IT Illinois, at the presentation, they do it quite good. I mean, what they do is that they present also the kind of jobs people usually get after the master degree that they get from AIT. They also usually like to present the kind of average salaries that people doing these masters in IT they get during the first 5 years, during the next 10 years of professional evolution. But it is completely different approach. I mean, it's mainly not for research. It's for achieving a double degree, a master, and then orientating into companies and a different path, let's say. Yeah,
absolutely. So much so, what you said, Professor Arthur, is so important that having a double degree from any U.S. university that costs a lot of money, if you get it from IIT through this double degree program, it gives you access to the American working market, which is absolutely different to having access to the research world in American universities or going back to Europe to do research. This grants you get a master's degree from an American university, and this gives you access to the professional world in the US. If that's your plan, that's probably the only or the best way, right? But you need to think what happens beyond this experience. This is not just that you want to have a 1-year experience. If you see yourself spending a few years, this is non-binding. You don't need to commit to do so. But if you see yourself trying to develop a professional career path in the US, not in research, then this is a natural path. So, okay, right. If this helps you with information. Thank you very much, Oscar.
Right. Thank you.
Any other question from anyone in the audience? Come on, it's a good timing. Any question? Either personalized, any curiosity, any criticism you have? Any question that's for everyone? Don't be shy. It's now or never.
Hi.
Yes,
I have a question.
Please go ahead, Alethea.
Well, just to confirm, we will not be paying the tuition in the United States, right? If we are doing research there.
Absolutely not. So if you are, most of our positions that we were showing today are research centric, and then you visit there as a visiting invited student. Actually, as a visiting scholar, I insist, like if you were be a PhD student attending, you're visiting for a period of 6 months, although sometimes that's extended to 9 months if the host professor asks you to do so, and you don't pay tuition.
Okay.
You don't pay tuition. Now, what about living expenses? That's another thing. Now, for living expenses, there's no grant. As I was mentioning at the beginning, sometimes there is an opportunity that you have a research assistantship or a teaching assistantship, like you would do here at UPC. If you stay here for the Trabalho de Grau, perhaps the professor gives you a grant. That's a possibility that's very common in the US, but that's not guaranteed upfront. But in any case, you are not paying tuition. This is a visiting researcher position, like doing the thesis. You go there. And now this also, Alicia, this also takes us to the question of timing. There are no golden rules for this type of mobilities. Usually, Remember that in the US, there are no bachelor theses. This doesn't exist. The bachelor, the degree, the undergrad ends up with a capstone project like PAE here. But there is no bachelor thesis. First thesis is the master thesis. But usually in the US, a master thesis, it's around 6 months to 9 months. And sometimes the professor, if you ask us, it depends on a one-to-one basis. It depends on the different destinations. Some people will say this will be a 6 months experience or a 9 months. Sometimes, sometimes most of you prefer to go back to do the masters or to continue your research or your studies. So sometimes you visit for 6 months, then you go back. Let's say that you're nominated to go in, I'm just guessing, Alicia, you're nominated to go in January 22, a year from now. Then you visit for 6 months, and then you come back so that you can start something in September in Europe. But sometimes the relationship continues remotely for 1, 2, or 3 extra months. For instance, writing the thesis or writing any research paper that's an outcome of the stay. So do expect that the whole experience should be 6 to 9 months, and the visit itself, it's usually around 6 months. But this depends case by case, if this is answering your question as well.
Yeah, thank you very much.
More questions, curiosities, clarifications?
Hello?
Yes, Arnau?
Yeah, I have a question too. I have a question related with in the mail that we have to send you. There's the need to attach you some files related to the English level,
No.
or that's not
No.
necessary?
Well,
Okay.
no. So to answer, well, by the way, you don't need to. If you have them at hand, you don't need. But you have, I'm counting on the CV and the academic file by default. Academic file we have from our school.
Okay.
The CV, you have it at hand, you send it. But it's not a substitute of the interview, but it helps us to assess how close you are to have a position in the US. So English level for a research visiting student, it's not a requisite. Usually, you're not expected. The host professor won't ask you, do you have a proficiency certificate?
Okay.
To the course, yes, but not for a visitor. Now, but in the interview, for those of you who have an interview with us, there will be 5, 10, 15 of you, that we will call you for an interview. Then in that interview, we'll see if English is an issue, which very unlikely happens, but no formal need for a certificate at now.
Okay, thank you very much.
Welcome. More questions? Floor is open to questions from anyone on any topic. We're here to assist you in any question you might have. We will be here to assist you during the nomination process and the interview. Don't feel that we are judging you. No. This is an opportunity for your future to close your experience in our school in the US. Anything that we'll do will be to assist you in this process. Any final question from anyone else? Yes, Jaume?
I have a question. Like, is there a better timing to apply here? Like, if you're in a bachelor degree or a master's degree?
That's a very good question. That is a very good question. And it's a delicate one, Jaume. This is a delicate one. At the beginning of the presentation, I started disclosing the natural moment for having the US mobility experience is master's. There's no red line. Nothing precludes a very strong bachelor student to have the US experience. But the natural moment is master's for a variety of reasons. And this is not something we decide or impose. That's what the US host imposes. On the one hand, in the US, there's no bachelor thesis in most of the universities. One. Second, this type of US experiences are an introduction to research. And it is very, very unusual that that's the way you culminate the bachelor thesis. That's very normal in master thesis. and you will be joining a research team surrounded by master students. So it is more normal to do it in a master's, but nothing precludes you to do this experience in bachelor. So statistically, we have, out of all our master students, 5-ish that take the experience, and then 3, 4, 5 bachelor. So don't take us wrong. If you're a bachelor, you can apply. If you have a strong, compelling reason, if you have a strong academic file, talk to us, expose your case, we will help you, right? But
okay.
the answer, it is more normal based on what the host professor in the US expect to do the experience in the masters. Plus, Jaume and everyone, if you go master, you already have specialization courses, and you know more in which topics you want to specialize. Sometimes, if you need to apply this in bachelor, it's a bit premature because you just have the generic courses. There's a bit of a mismatch in time because we have an annual call. Some of you is far from having specialization courses, even for undergrad bachelor. It's very difficult to take this decision. So it's a bit more a natural decision in masters. Now, the final question from you, Jaume, is, can I have both the bachelor thesis and the master thesis experience from the US? And the answer is generally no. Generally no. Unless there are vacancies. I mean, we won't oppose to that, but right? Is that correct, Professor Lázaro? So the positions are, it is rare that someone takes the US experience both for bachelor and for masters.
Yeah. The only way to do this could be through the former Balcells program. I mean, in this case, yes, some students has been applying first for bachelor mobility inside the Balcells program, and then later on they have been continuing doing the master's mobility. But as Eduardo comments, it's probably the only way you can achieve that.
But for instance, Jaume, another scenario. Let's say that you have so clear that you would like you or everyone to take a research path, that you have that experience at the bachelor thesis, and then you stay for a graduate program in the US. If any one of you has ever considered to do a graduate study in the US, a master program in the US, it's far more easier to go through our school to do the bachelor thesis. And once you're there, you know the situation there, you are known, and it's easy to apply for graduate studies. So that's the normal situation in which you can apply in bachelor, either if you have a very strong file or you want to pursue the master's in the US. Else, it's not vetoed, but it's not the natural way. We will be listening and interviewing anyone that would like to consider so, but we might recommend not to do it for bachelors.
Yeah,
so
okay,
if you have a clear decision that you will stay for masters here in Europe or at UPS in particular, then it makes more sense that you wait for 1.5 years. The positions will be here for you as well. We present them now, but if you stay in our school for masters, these positions will be also for you. So they are waiting for you in a sense. If this clarifies your question, Jaume. Thank you. Any more comment from anyone on any topic? The brave ones who stayed, 18 of you.
Yes. Hello, Eduard.
Yes. Federico, hi.
I have a question. If after the US mobility you decide not to do research and try to work in a US company, do you have the same facilities as if you will do the double degree path?
That's a very good question, Federico. It's a difficult one. It's a difficult one. First, the question that the professor in the US will ask you is whether you think that you want to do research. But it's non-binding. It's not, I mean, you cannot commit that you will do research if you're trying research in the thesis. That's what I was saying, that you have the genuine willingness to try to do research. If you don't have research experience, Federico and everyone, and if you haven't tried, it is very normal that you need to try in a bachelor thesis. So it's not a full commitment. No one will tell you, come here because you're committed to continue with research. Now, what if you do the bachelor thesis experience or the master's experience, and then you want to stay not for the research world in the US or the research world in Europe. And remember, research doesn't mean academia. It is academia, but companies. There are many companies that do research, right? So that's a very clear thing. What if you would like to have your professional exercise as an engineer in the US? Then it blows hot and cold there. One advantage and one disadvantage. The advantage is if you go to a professional company in the US and you have a degree from UPC Barcelona, that is fine. They know our school. But if you have an experience in, let's say, Texas A&M or Nebraska or MIT, they know the university better. So it helps you to reposition and recalibrate you to the normality in the US. So that's a point in favor of. Now, there is an administrative disadvantage that escapes our control and it comes and goes. Sometimes in the past, visiting students were not allowed to stay in the US. There was something called the 2-year rule, saying if you visit the US for 6 months, then you're expected to leave the US for 2 years before you can go back and join a professional path. And now, as we talk, since we're now facing an interregnum transition between two administrations, we don't know. But that 2-year rule, which I think was very unfair, but that was from the Department of State, that precluded doing what you're saying. I go there, I have the bachelor thesis, and then I stay in the professional world. Less is nothing. You have an experience and a thesis from a university. You don't have a degree. You're not professionally qualified, but they know you. So compared to staying in the UPC. But check if that 2-year rule holds now. And we don't know. Who knows what the next administration will do. That was a very protective administrative rule. So Federico, I know this is a very difficult question. I tried to answer it the best I could.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Floor is open for questions. We have been 64 minutes talking about US mobility destinations. Any other question from anyone? You're very welcome to ask. It's now or never, anything. Any curiosity, any question? Naive or difficult? Try. No? Professor Laffer, I think that we can call to an end there. Therefore, we have no more questions.
I think so. So thank you very much for all of you to be attending this presentation, and thank you, Professor Alarcón, for this clear presentation of all this complex information. As said, just go ahead and then send the email with the exercise that Professor is asking you to do on your proposal. And yeah, you remember, you have to contact first with Professor Alarcón for any of those possibilities of mobility in the United States. And this you have also to ask for through Secretaría till 31st of January, which is the deadline for asking for those positions through Secretaría. I mean, it has to be double. Yeah, it has to be personally with Professor Alarcón and also formally through the Secretaría of the school. Yeah.
Of course. So I did mention about administration aspects. You're very right. So the interview that goes through us representing the school, and I will talk to Professor Laffer, is just to facilitate your nomination. But then you need to formally, administratively apply. That's number one. Number two, I'm curious to see that no one asked this. Some of you, a subset of you, would say, I want to apply to the US. It's a yes or yes. Then you apply to the US. And whenever you apply to the destinations, you rank them, 5 of them, and you will get 1. Some of you might say, I would like to try US, but I recognize that I might need a backup in Europe. So some of you will ask, I apply to MIT, and then I apply to UMass, and then I apply to EPFL in Lausanne. That is fine. You can apply both to US and to Europe. But if any of you applies to both US and Europe, you qualify as a US mobility candidate. You need to talk to us. We will assign you. If someone goes to January and goes to the administrative process for any mobility and includes a US destination without going through the process of the interview, that won't be nominated, right?
Exactly.
Any final comment or question? No? If there isn't, then thank you, Professor Lázaro, for calling for the meeting, and thank you, everyone, and good luck. We'll be here to assist you in the rest of the process. Thank you, and have a good day. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. Thank you.